guys, welcome back to the WOD Doc and welcome to a special edition of the WOD Doc. Tonight, I have a guest star on. His name is Johnny Romano. For those of you guys that know Johnny, you know that he is a foremost expert in PEDs and the coaching and use of performance enhancement drugs. Now, whenever we put out a topic such as this, I understand that it is at the very least controversial. So I need to put out a little disclaimer for all you guys out there, so that way everyone's on the same page. First and foremost, everything that you listen to and see in tonight's episode is strictly the opinion of that foremost expert. By no means is there an accusation towards any one person or any one group as to doing something that is banned or illegal in the CrossFit or functional fitness community. Secondly, you're going to see some images and some imagery within that. That's because the initial video quality that I shot was so atrocious, I needed to strip the video off, and I needed to add a picture just of Johnny's face. Now that picture sits there for an hour during the entire podcast, so I added some additional pictures and additional visual imagery solely for the purpose of entertainment. It is by no means an admission of guilt or an accusation towards any one person or any one group that you might see in there, okay? So those things are so important. One, there is no accusation towards one person. It is simply the opinion of that expert. And two, any visual images that you see on there is not an accusation towards one person or a admission of guilt by those people. Understanding that, I think that we'll all be on the same page. The last thing I could say is this is done in a professional manner. It is simply to try to understand what could possibly be going on with the infiltration of PEDs. It is knowledge. One more time, knowledge is power. That's what we're trying to do and add to our community. So please understand this is done in a professional manner. All comments, please make them in a professional manner. Thank you guys, and please enjoy tonight's episode. Hey guys, welcome back to the WOD Doc. This is going to be a special edition WOD Doc podcast. I call it, kind of nicknamed it the WOD Doc Wadcast, although it doesn't necessarily have a name for anything right now. We're just trying to run with this great idea of expanding on concepts in which I don't think that we can cover in 3 to 5 minutes. If you've been following along through Instagram, Facebook, or on my website, you would have noticed that we post videos on a daily basis, but they're short and to the point, 3 to 5 minutes. Not all topics are able to be expanded upon in 3 to 5 minutes. And when it comes to things that are controversial or crucial to development or safety of athletes, I think that it's time to start developing and flushing out these concepts. And so what I did is I went out and tried to seek out some of the best and brightest minds out there in the specific fields in which we like to talk about these concepts. And it's inherently that one of the people that came on was John Romano. And if you guys have ever read any of his stuff, he's been all over the place, from T-Nation to ESPN to, your list goes on and on. So, John, could you talk a little bit about yourself? And I guess I should take the elephant out of the room. What I wanted to talk today, and the reason why I contacted John, is because he is one of the foremost experts in use of PEDs, and not just towards the functional fitness community, but for every place. Is that correct?
Yeah, talking about me is like my least favorite subject.
I'm so sorry.
But yes, I've been in this industry, let's call it, for almost 30 years now. I started messing around with PEDs back, in the Dan Duchesne era. Dan Duchesne was my mentor. Most of the people listening to this probably have no idea who he is, but Dan Duchesne was the original steroid guru. He was the guy who basically brought steroids out of the medical setting and into your bathroom. And most, if not all, of the preliminary steroid data we have today came from him. It's been regurgitated, rehashed, rewritten, extrapolated, expanded upon, but if you can trace back pretty much any PED used today to him. So, and this was, early 80s. So since the early 80s, I've been involved in PED use. I've bought them, sold them, imported them, made them, prescribed them, used them. I've done pretty much everything you can imagine with them. Written extensively about them. I was senior editor of Muscular Development magazine for 18 years. I've written for Muscle Mag in Canada, Muscle Insider in Canada. I write for T Nation. I started rxmuscle.com with Dave Palumbo. I did the multimedia site for VPX Sports. I've done HBO 2020. I did the steroid documentary Bigger, Stronger, Faster that I appeared in and consulted on. So I've been pretty much immersed in this industry. I've also prepped many hundreds, maybe in thousands, I don't know, I haven't counted, athletes over the 30 years for bodybuilding, fitness, figure competitions, powerlifting, NFL, wrestlers. I've helped people pass their drug tests, Olympic athletes, and now I'm working with a lot of CrossFitters, specifically CrossFitters who want to use PEDs and pass their drug tests.
Yeah. So I guess that kind of brings us right to the topic at hand. The reason why I brought you on here, because so many of us. And I don't want to say naive, because when I say naive, I feel like I'm already saying what I think about the sport CrossFit and what they're doing. But I guess I wanted to ask you, is there an infiltration of PEDs in the functional fitness community? And if there is or is not, what would you say the extent of it is?
Pretty much the extent of beer being sold at baseball games.
All right. I guess I wouldn't have put it that far. I wouldn't have expected it that far. But we see a community, and it just from the medical aspect of it. If there was a sport that was built for PEDs, gosh, this one has to be pretty close because it's all about the recovery, right? The strength is there, the power is there, and the endurance is there, but it's these competitions, time after time after time. 14, 17 events throughout a short period of time. These people need to recover, right?
Well, you hit the nail on the head, and I've said this in many articles and in many interviews that I believe CrossFit is probably the poster sport for PED use, not only for the performance enhancement, but as you state, for the recovery aspect. And CrossFit is, one of those. It's people will agree it's in its infancy, but it's also one of those things that how the hell do you even train for CrossFit? You have to be proficient at 100 different moves, and you don't know what they're going to be when the games roll around. So you've got to somehow train for this. And I know several of the clients I have that are CrossFit athletes, competitors, who are training 3 times a day, 7 days a week. And I say, don't you ever take a day off? And they go, yeah, I take a day off all the time. Well, what do you do on your day off? Oh, I do a recovery run or a row or, half a marathon. And I'm like, a recovery row, a half a marathon. Right. Or, I go, well, that's not rest. Rest is laying on the couch,
Watching cartoons, right?
At least, and, drinking another protein shake. But, it's the concept. The concept of CrossFit seems to be all out 100% of the time. And the closer you can get to all out 100% of the time seems to be the formula for what causes people to excel in CrossFit. The only problem is the human body wasn't designed to do that. Compounding that is the fact that CrossFit has gotten progressively and exponentially more difficult as each progressive year has ensued. Yeah. So, you look at the guys who were winning these events, the top guys, their physiques have also become radically improved year after year after year. So the question that begs to be asked is, how can a human being subject themselves to pretty much nonstop training, ever increasing difficulty in competition, realize an ever improving body composition, and do it on broccoli and Haagen-Dazs?
It's paleo.
Yeah, it's paleo. Exactly, it's paleo. It's the cavemen eat. So it's virtually insulting to a person of even average intelligence to think that PEDs are not prevalent in CrossFit because you couldn't possibly compete at that level without them.
Yeah, I think the amount, the distance at which people will go to for victory, I guess, has also increased. I mean, when I recently watched the Lance Armstrong documentary, and that was an eye opener to so much, because I feel like I always knew PEDs were around. But not until I really got into the athletic development did I see just how prevalent they were in all sports, and sports that don't give money, sports like the Olympics, where you don't get paid for that. Sure, your country endorses you and stuff like that, but the amount of people that get caught in sports then which don't have any money and really don't have any fame. What is a bobsledder? How famous is a bobsledder for the United States Olympic team? Like, could you name all of them? Probably not, right?
Couldn't name one.
Right, but the thing is that, I mean, these people in the community that CrossFit has formed, I mean, these people are legends to a lot of people, and I feel like, just from my aspect, is certain people, they definitely have, I don't want to say the wool pulling over their eyes, but they definitely believe that everything is like, it's just perfect, and these people are genetically perfect and genetically gifted, and I think that a lot of them are. I think that, like, again, referring to Lance Armstrong documentary, I think that Lance Armstrong was still the superior athlete. I think the best person still won. Was it Dorian Yates that said it when he's like, if they took drugs out of bodybuilding, the best guy, the same guy would still win. He'd just be 20 pounds lighter. I'm not
Absolutely.
sure. I'm not sure if it was him that said that. I know it was a weightlifter though. So I just feel like that we want to believe. It's almost like a faith in the system, and I don't know if that's the truth, and I guess that's why I had somebody that knows a lot more than myself come on and just want to speak freely about it and have people listen to that controversial subject, because this is something that not a lot of people would want to hear, right? Half the people will probably be writing me nasty emails because of having something like this,
Well, it's interesting to me because it seems to be that CrossFit is composed of this component of society that seems to fancy themselves as holier than thou, that they are the elite of the elite of the elite, that their battle cry is, your workout is our warm up, and they seem to promote this notion that they're just superhuman people. Now, that may be true to the same degree that there's the Michael Jordans of basketball, but how many of them are there?
Yeah,
very, very few. CrossFit proclaims the entire sport is composed of these elite, incredible people, and that, God forbid, the idea you even dream of PEDs, you'd have to wake up and apologize.
right.
So, it's just preposterous, and the notion that these people think they are so elite and so perfect and so gifted is it's just like, the loudest guy in the room is usually the stupidest guy in the room, and it's that kind of mentality. The quietest guy in the room is the guy you got to watch out for.
Understood.
And that's what I see. And the funny thing is as soon as I published my first CrossFit and PED article, and I think it was on T Nation, my inbox was full the next day of CrossFit guys asking about PEDs and what are they taking and what's this guy taking and how many guys do I work with and what are they taking, and my philosophy is that I don't share that information with anybody, but I can tell you that I started coaching PED use back in the 80s with bodybuilders, and for a long time, pretty much 100% of my business was bodybuilders. Let's say 80%. The other 20% were football players, wrestlers, and the assorted gym rat.
Right.
Now, over half of my clientele are CrossFit guys begging me to say, "Don't say anything to anybody," and of course I don't. I mean, it's
would be bad for your business, right?
Yes, my policy not to. My policy is even that you can't even, if you're my client, I don't even take a referral from you.
Right.
You have to find me on your own. I don't want anybody saying that, oh yeah, I'm working with Romano and, so and so told me that I should give you a call. Because I don't think that's fair because, I may be working with the guy that's competing next to you.
Uh-huh.
So, it's virtually anonymous, but I have no problem admitting that over half of my clientele at any given time are CrossFit athletes whose main goal is to pass the drug test at the regionals.
I guess the question that everyone would want to know then is: are these household names, or are they are these people that people would know, or are they like the people that nobody would actually find out about anyway? Like, are these are these the Tiger Woods and the Michael Jordans, or because what the argument becomes is the guy that's in second place is always the guy that works the hardest, right? The guy that's in first place only works as hard as he has to do to win. And it seems like after a competition, it's not the guy that got first place that's laying on the ground, half beaten to death. It's the guy that got second and third. So, some would make the argument, and I've heard this argument said, that the top guys aren't doing anything because these are the guys that are already there. They continue to make it, and it's everyone else that's trying to jump onto that, onto the mountain, so to speak, and to get to that place that will do anything to make it there.
That's I guess if you believe in the Easter Bunny, you could believe in that too. Let's take I don't want to,
I totally understand
anybody's reputation in CrossFit, but let's go back to Lance Armstrong as the example.
Uh-huh.
Okay, Lance Armstrong never failed the drug test. However, are we supposed to believe that he didn't use PEDs? Of course he did. That's what he got busted for, on an administrative positive, because he got ratted out by teammates that, saw him using them.
Right.
So absolutely the top guys are using them, and the guys in second place are probably using more because they're trying to catch him.
Right.
But, in any given sport, you're going to have the best of the best excel. And that's so in every single sport ever contrived. So you're always going to get the genetically gifted. You're always going to get the talented. You're always going to get the people for whom their body, their structure, their composition, their disposition was tailor-made for whatever it is that they're, seeking. It's like opera singers. I mean, not everybody can sing opera. No matter how many voice lessons you take, you're never going to be Luciano Pavarotti. So there are people who are predisposed to being exceptional at what they do. Let's look at baseball. Barry Bonds is with or without steroids, was the home run king, would have been the home run king, is the home run king. You could inject a bottle of testosterone, put on Barry's uniform, and you're not going to hit 700 home runs.
Right.
So it's a combination of raw talent and ability, compounded by the fact that you are ascribing to a training system that is composed of everything to be the best. It's your diet, it's your training, it's your deep tissue massage, it's your sports-specific, training, it's recovery protocols, it's how many hours of sleep you're getting, how many times a day you're sleeping, what vitamins you're taking, what minerals you're taking, what blood profiles you're running, how many meals a day are you eating, what is the macro breakdown, and how many what drugs are you taking?
Mm-hmm.
You plotted all that in a pie chart. I find it's absolutely unfair to pigeonhole one tiny slice of the pie and focus on that as the all-out evil in the world and omit everything else. PED use among elite athletes is part of the training protocol to be an elite athlete. And that is standard in every sport in the world. Right. And CrossFit is no different.
Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the best arguments that you have there is I think that, it's almost like saying if everyone's doing it, that is exactly what you said. It's part of that regimen. And it's, I guess the way it sounds is you're not necessarily, I don't want to say the word surprised, right? But you don't feel the same insult that somebody that might have just started CrossFit and think that, all these guys are gods, and be like, oh my gosh, you could never say that they have taken anything or done anything wrong. You're simply saying that they all do, and this is part of being an elite athlete in every single sport.
That and the fact that I don't care.
Right.
Because my position is I fulfill two roles as a coach. People come to me and they either want to extract maximum performance and not break the rules, or they want to extract maximum performance by cheating and not getting caught.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care which one of those you want to do. As long as you pay me, I don't care. Do whatever you want. It's not my sport. You deal with the morality of it. And I don't know who's who. You could list off the top 20 CrossFit guys, and unless they're one of my clients, I have no idea who they are, and I don't care. It's my job. My job is to do what you paid me to do, and that is either of those two things that I just mentioned.
Understood.
So, as far as the sport itself goes, I just don't care. So, that may put horns on my head and a pointy tail, but I don't really care. It's not my position.
But at least it gives you the honesty and the frankness to talk about things that other people might not explain or want to explain.
Sure.
Not to move forward, but I do want to move forward just a little bit and say, like, so what would be like things like PEDs that these athletes would take? Like, what would be the perfect storm cocktail for a CrossFit athlete? Could you expand on that or something like that? Not saying that I'm trying to give people drug tips. That's not what I mean.
I kind of like to not answer questions like that because of two reasons. One is it cuts into my income.
Okay, I understand.
And people pay me big money for that information. And secondly is, I don't want somebody. I'm not going to sell myself out and give a specific protocol, milligram per body weight and all of that.
Right.
Because like I said, it undermines my income. And secondly, I don't want people out there winging it on their own and me be responsible for them screwing up. So, these are powerful hormones, and you can definitely, while they on the surface appear to be safe, you can, cause yourself some damage. And I don't want to be the guy that's responsible for that unless you're under my care and I'm taking care of you and we're monitoring your blood work and we know about all your history and what you should be watch out for. We watch your cholesterol levels, your liver enzymes, your kidney functions, and all of those things, and we keep a close eye on that. And it's not, people have this misconception about steroids that they can just I'm just going to inject this and inject that, and because the guy at the gym got it and I bought it from his gym bag and it must be good because he's using it. And there's so many factors to consider when you're using PEDs. Namely, is the stuff I'm taking what it's purported to be in the first place? Because fakes and counterfeits have proliferated the marketplace, especially the black market. Mm-hmm. And the bro science available online is 90% wrong.
Right.
So I just don't feel comfortable.
That's an educated answer to give. I don't think that's irresponsible to do. Could I ask then, because that there's people out there that probably are doing this as a bro science, right? Uh-huh. So could you expand upon? I guess it's a scare tactic. Maybe it isn't, but of some of the things that could happen if these things aren't monitored. Like, what are the dangers of taking PEDs?
Sure. That's simple. Let's start with, oral versus injectable. A lot of people have a problem sticking a needle in their hide. Mm-hmm. So they opt for the oral steroids. Now, many people don't know that oral steroids fall in, this is just one example. Many people don't know that oral steroids fall into two categories. Those that are 17 alpha alkylated and those are not. Ones that have an alkaline ion attached at the 17th position on the testosterone molecule or the dihydrotestosterone molecule create that methyl group is highly liver toxic. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know that and you're swallowing Dianabol by the handful, your liver enzymes are going to go through the roof, and you could probably cause yourself a significant amount of liver damage. Mm-hmm. Some steroids are not 17 alpha alkylated. They tend to be the weaker ones, and those you can take pretty much ad nauseum and not get yourself into trouble. Although some of them do at higher doses increase liver enzymes, and those are things that you have to keep an eye on. Injectable steroids, you can destroy your own your own, just to make this, I don't know how to word this to make it lay terms less complicated. You can pretty much interfere with your own long-term production of testosterone to the degree to which, when you're 30 or 5 or 40 years old, you're going to have to take exogenous testosterone just to maintain normal levels. Mm-hmm. Which means you have to take a shot every single week for the rest of your life. A lot of guys are doing that right now.
Right.
You can create problems with insulin disposal and insulin sensitivity by taking too much growth hormone. You can screw yourself up with diuretics. You can screw yourself up with anti-cortisol. There's a myriad of problems you can subject yourself to by not knowing what you're doing or by following bro science on the internet.
Right. Okay. I mean, that definitely encompasses everything that I think people would be asking about in that question, and I appreciate that. I want to move on to more directed towards. Man, it sounds bad when I'm probably going to get killed for calling out CrossFit, and maybe I'm not, but do you think that CrossFit is aware of the PED use that happens in their functional fitness community?
I can't. I've been asked that question many times, and I just can't. I cannot imagine that HQ doesn't know for a fact that their top guys are using stuff. It would just seem to me. It would just seem to be so implausible that they would be blind to this, unless they're blinded to it intentionally, mm-hmm. because they just don't want to know.
Right.
And plausible deniability in that case would factor in, and they can maintain their public image of we're the cleanest sport in the world, because they got their head in the sand. Mm-hmm. I don't know which it is, because I really don't care. But the fact of the matter is, it is impossible. It is physiologically impossible for the number of people competing at the level that they're competing to do so at the level they're doing it without taking drugs. It's mm-hmm. just impossible. Now, within the context of that statement, I'm going to ruffle the feathers of two different people. I'm going to ruffle the feathers of the guy who absolutely is in total denial of what he's doing because he wants to maintain that public image. And the second one is, I'm going to ruffle the feathers of the absolute perfect genetic freak out there who is completely and purposely put together for CrossFit and doesn't need PEDs.
Right, because we can't go out there and say every single person is doing it, because there are genetic freaks and there are people that are made for every single sport. Powerlifting, CrossFit, football, basketball. These people come out of the woodwork, and you're right, they don't need it. And imagine what they would be if they did do it. But
sure.
But to go out there and make an absolute statement. When we make absolute statements, we're generally wrong, right? When we make these blanket statements, we're generally wrong. So we can't say that everyone does it, but and that there are people out there that really are genetically perfect for this. But we can't also say that also means, because there's that one person, that everyone is also perfect as well.
Exactly, and it's it's the I guess it's the PR image is so valuable in sports because of the millions and millions and millions of dollars attached to these athletes. And once again, to avoid calling out anybody specifically, let's look at track and field and go back to 1988 when Ben Johnson got busted for cheating at the Olympics in Seoul.
Yeah.
Carl Lewis, the America's darling, was supposedly the guy who was clean. And the whole uproar over Ben Johnson getting caught was a slap in the face that the Canadians gave the Americans by the only way that the Canadians could beat the Americans was by cheating. Mm-hmm. And Carl Lewis was supposed to be, the golden boy, Mr. Clean, never touched a drug in his life. 2 years later, it came out that he failed the test for amphetamines. Uh-huh. So, the idea that people are clean plays wonderfully on the PR machine, but the fact of the matter is that almost nobody is. And I have to say almost, because like we agree, are the genetic freaks out there, but even those who are supposed to be the genetic freaks end up being cheaters too. Mm. So who knows? The only thing I know are the guys who come to me for help, and I can tell you pretty much by virtue of that fact that the elite of the elite of the elite of CrossFit are doing drugs.
Right. Okay, so that goes on to the next question very nicely. Then, I have seen an increased awareness of like CrossFit and HQ, demanding that these tests are increased and stuff like that. So now anybody that goes to the games or anybody that becomes eligible through the games has to be tested throughout that year at least once, right? So say I was an athlete and I thought that I was going to be eligible for the games. I needed to have a drug test at least one time throughout that year for me to be eligible to go to the games. But we all know that when drug tests are known, that these things they're porous, right? I mean, we can get around them pretty easily or whatnot. So that begs the question, if CrossFit is aware of this and they are doing active strategies to try to reduce this, do they actually have the means, right? I mean, CrossFit, in all due respect, yes, it's a growing sport, but it's no Major League Baseball and it's no NFL. These are companies that have billions of dollars, right? These are corporations that have billions of dollars. CrossFit is not as big as them. So can they even afford to test and find and I guess eliminate the people that are doing these things?
Yes and no. And I'll explain my answer. Yes, in the sense that the test, as far as I'm concerned, a drug test is an IQ test. Only idiots fail them. So I have passed every drug test that I have ever been subject to, or any of my clients have been subject to, because they're so easy to pass. I mean, especially CrossFit. CrossFit's a joke when it comes to passing the test. So, I mean, I could train probably a donkey to pass it. It's just not hard at all. Mm-hmm. The other fact is that you touched on cost. It's not just cost, it's availability. Just because a drug is listed on the banned list does not mean there's a test for it.
Okay.
So you can say that, XYZ drug is banned, but there's no test for it. Growth hormone is banned, but you can't detect growth hormone unless you happen to pee in the cup within 20 minutes of injecting it. After that, it's gone. It's broken down in the liver into somatomedin C, and the metabolites are gone. So
this is kind of a geek question about this. I don't know if I'm at all right. So my understanding with growth hormone is that the reason why it's undetectable is because since it's the step before, it does not give the same estrogen testosterone mismatch, so to speak. So, but didn't they design blood tests for this so that they can test parts per deciliter within blood and find out whether like certain peptides were higher than others to catch these things?
Okay, growth hormone has no bearing on epitestosterone to testosterone or estrogen to testosterone at all. So that's a complete misstatement of fact.
I think I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, but basically, tell me if I'm incorrect, because I probably am, but I think it's important to kind of extrapolate on. So when you ingest testosterone, however you do it, right, you're basically adding testosterone to your body, and your body then will create the counterbalance of that estrogen for that to try to equalize that. However, my understanding was that since you're going a step before, that's why there's no bearing on testosterone versus estrogen levels. Am I way off there?
I mean, maybe I think you said growth hormone in the beginning, so now I'm a little confused. You mean testosterone?
Yeah, no. What I was doing is I was making a difference between the old style of taking testosterone, how it was easily caught because it would change these levels and be detectable, versus the new style of taking things like growth hormone, which did not change these levels of estrogen and testosterone, so therefore weren't detectable.
Okay, exogenous testosterone will concomitantly increase estrogen as a balance mechanism. However, all you do is take an anti-estrogen, and that's obliterated.
Okay.
The other test method was the testosterone to epitestosterone ratio, and it used to be 9-to-1, and they lowered it to 6-to-1, and That's always my even playing field argument, because if you're naturally have a testosterone, epitestosterone of 2 to 1, and you're competing against a guy who's got a natural level of 5 to 1, well, the guy at 5 to 1 has an advantage over the guy at 2 to 1. So the even playing field, where is that? It's gone. Now, conversely, the guy who has the 5 to 1 ratio can stay clean, but the guy with the 2 to 1 ratio can take a few milligrams of testosterone every day, or every few days, or every week, and raise his testosterone to epitestosterone level to within legal limits, but he's still taking drugs. So,
wow, that's a catch-22 subject and a half, huh?
So exogenous testosterone can be detected with a very expensive test. It's on the Olympic level, and it's a blood test. So there's and the fact of the matter is anybody who's using the right kind of testosterone leading into a competition and knows how to manage it leading into the competition is not going to test positive for it anyway, blood or urine. So it doesn't matter.
Okay. Yeah, I think that clears up a lot of things, and I don't think that people understand that these drugs aren't always testable, or if they are testable, they're not always found. So somebody could actually be on something but test clean. I think that concept is totally lost, at least in the CrossFit community. When you talk to people, they're like, "Oh, well, they all take P tests, so they all have to be clean." And I don't think that people understand that these tests are possible to pass and still have some type of drugs in your system.
You got to remember, Lance Armstrong was the most tested athlete in the world. In the world, the most tested, and he never failed a drug test. Now, that always begs the question, well, does that mean he was clean, or did it mean he passed the drug test? So, the drug test is really only for idiots. If you have any kind of competent coaching in your corner, if you have any kind of competent knowledge about these things and how they work, you're not going to fail your drug test. So the idea that drug tests promote clean sport is just window dressing for the PR machine. It has no bearing whatsoever on reality.
Okay. I think that is definitely going to scratch some people the wrong way, the way that we talk about it. But hey, the truth hurts sometimes,
It's my motto.
So I guess that leads us to, what do you see the future of CrossFit being? And I want to relate this to baseball, because I personally think that people don't want to see CrossFitters be caught taking PEDs. I mean, I remember the Barry Bonds era, and I liked seeing 65 and 71 home runs being hit over the fence, and I liked having pitchers throw shutout games. I think the fans like that, and I think if the fans had to go back and they had to vote on these things and be like, oh, well, let them take it because I want to see the leather knocked out of a ball. I think that if you see this same thing happen with CrossFit, it will eventually get to a certain point at which, if all these things are detected and eliminated, you're no longer going to see these super impressive numbers with the same guy that's clean and jerking 400 pounds right afterwards running a 450 mile. I think that the sport itself might suffer from that. What's your take on that?
Well, of course. I mean, Reebok isn't going to spend millions of dollars paying to televise, the games to see a doughy guy do Fran in 8 minutes. Who's going to watch that? Drugs need to be in the sport if performance is going to exponentially increase along with the perceived difficulty of the games. So as the games get harder and the athletes become more proficient, it behooves them and HQ to make sure that the guys at the top are setting records, breaking records, and creating a spectacle for which people are going to pay money to see, and sponsors are going to keep ponying up to keep it going. They're not going to pay to see less performance. It was like baseball. The baseball was in the pits of hell during the late 90s, mid 90s after the strike, and it took It took the home run race. It took the Bash Brothers. It took Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa. It took Mark McGwire and Jose Canseco, jacked up out of their brains to, crack these home runs out of the park every single week. And it made the fans crazy. It filled the stadiums up. Baseball, MLB had the best seasons ever during the peak of the steroid scandal. Mm-hmm. Now look at baseball. It's boring as hell again. So, that's the problem, is that the spectator does not want to see mediocrity. The spectator wants to see superhuman performance. And they're going to pay to see superhuman performance. They're not going to pay to see mediocrity. Reebok is not going to support mediocrity. They're going to support the best of the best. They're not handing out endorsement contracts to the guys that lock up last place. So it's inherent that PEDs proliferate the sport because you've got to maintain excellence. And the only way that you can maintain excellence is by employing the total package of performance enhancement, which, among the myriad of other things, also includes PEDs.
Mm-hmm. Understandable. And I think that answers it to everyone as far as this is a multifaceted, complicated, compounded question or journey that athletes have to take, because there's so much pressure from sponsors. There's so much pressure from like the community. There's so much pressure that they put on themselves out of the want and desire to win. And then you add in the money aspect to it, and the fame and the fortune and all these other things. I almost find it's very hard not to, look at it the same way you do. But like you said, it's almost like Reebok or, maybe not Reebok, but the community of CrossFit makes these people, or puts these people on a pedestal, so they feel like they have to be there to continually set these new records, which, requires, like you said, a myriad of other, not just PEDs. Like PEDs is such a small fraction of what they do, but it's the sleep, and it's the supplements, and it's the training, and it's the the genetics. Sure. It's just, I guess it boggles my mind, and I'm really glad that you were able to, open my eyes a little bit. I feel like I need to go and learn even more. It's just because these are things that I would like to know as a medical professional. How they increase the risk of injury, and how I can make this safer for the CrossFit community or functional fitness community as well. Because, there's so many, I wouldn't say so many injuries, but there are now leading up to, a myriad of injuries that go along with the progression of the sport, right?
Yeah. I mean, I always say, the one thing CrossFit has proven above and beyond anything else is if you really want to hurt yourself, you found the right sport. Is the amount of injuries is just absolutely disproportionate to the number of participants. I've never seen more injuries in my entire life in any other sport, even hockey, where they actually hit each other. Mm-hmm. So, injury prevention, though, is part and parcel to PED use. I mean, you can in fact avoid injuries, and in fact recover from injuries faster with the correct PED protocol. But one topic that weaves itself in and out of this that you didn't bring up is the group dynamic. It consumes the individual, and this was probably most eloquently laid out in an LA Times article around the time of the '84 Olympics in Los Angeles, when they asked 500 Olympic athletes that if there was a substance that you could take that would guarantee you a gold medal at the Olympics but would kill you within 5 years, would you take it? And 99% of the respondents said yes.
Wow, that's a powerful statement.
Yep, and that's the mindset. So if you now incorporate that into the crucible of performance enhancement, who wouldn't do it? I mean, if your mindset is win at all costs, win the games, own the record, be the top guy, get that super lucrative endorsement contract from Reebok or whomever, if that's your mindset, which is the mindset of a lot of the practitioners, then really, how out of the realm is PED use?
It doesn't
it's like
seem to
next
be.
to Wheaties.
So I'd like to wrap things up with asking, what would you say to the aspiring CrossFit superstars of tomorrow, and how would you suggest for them to go about their lives? Because I don't want to say this conversation had a negative impact. What I would like to say is that it makes people wake up to the possibilities and the more like the likelihood of the things that go around them. But that doesn't mean that they have to go down this avenue. I mean, what would you say to these people?
First, I'd say get over yourselves.
That's a great answer, right?
Because, well, the idea that they're this, elite of the elite of the elite is just ridiculous. It makes me nauseous when I hear these, this trite, commentary about how great they are. They're no greater than any other athlete in any other sport that requires, finesse and talent and endurance and perseverance and hard work and, all of the other things. I mean, you're going to tell me that, a boxer has an easier time of it competing for the Olympics or a title belt than a CrossFitter? I mean, come on.
Or like an MMA professional. Yeah, we understand.
Yeah,
that.
Exactly. I mean, it's not, it's completely preposterous for CrossFit to think they are that high up Mount Olympus that no one else is near them. So first and foremost, you got to get that through your heads. The second idea is that look at what you're doing and compare that to human physiology. If you think that you're going to pursue, if you're of average genetic potential and you think you're going to pursue CrossFit at the level that it takes to be at the top, which in my experience has been just an insane training protocol, 3 times a day, no rest. A lot of them eat poor diets and they don't pay any attention to, a lot of the other factors involved in becoming elite. That you're kidding yourself. You're going to get hurt, perhaps permanently, and you're going to be an abysmal failure at what you set out to do. And in any endeavor, you have to weigh the pros and cons of what it takes to compete and excel at the elite level and decide whether or not it's within your nature to do it. And if it is, you have to accept all the baggage that comes along with it. You can't pick and choose. So if you think you're going to be an elite CrossFit athlete and you're not the Michael Jordan of CrossFit and don't have the requisite rare as the Hope Diamond genetic potential to do it clean, then you're going to have to accept the fact that you're going to have to do what it takes to win. And if you want to win and if you want to compete at that level, then you're going to have to subscribe to what everybody else is doing.
Right.
Otherwise,
and at bare minimum, you're going to have to accept that you're going to compete against other people that will probably be doing those things.
Well, yeah, because the concept of the even playing field is absolute poppycock. There's no such thing. There's absolutely no such thing. And anybody who thinks there is just kidding themselves.
Mm-hmm. Totally understand. It's kind of funny that you said get over yourself, and I'm just going to extrapolate on that just for a quick second. And I was talking to another colleague of mine, and one of the things that they brought up is he doesn't believe that CrossFit is actually testing the fittest person in the world currently at this time. And his argument for that is that what we're testing and what we have is we have the people that aren't in those $1 million contracts as they are right now. So if you were to take the superstars of the sports arena right now, I'm talking about whichever ones you want to do, anything from soccer to football to basketball to baseball to rugby, you find the sport at which is paying millions of dollars to these genetic freaks, right, and have them train for this sport of functional fitness, you might see a whole nother beast, a whole nother level come out. Because right now what you're seeing is, if we look at some of the best out there, I mean, some of those guys are Division III or second string Division I guys in sports that they were playing.
Sure.
So it'd be really interesting to see the starters get on that bandwagon as well. And I couldn't disagree with what he said. I said that's an interesting way to go about it.
Well, I think it would be amazing if you could, create a CrossFit or functional training camp and employ all of the technology that we have today, and including the impending technology that's about to hit us, and create the absolute elite of the elite scientifically, and create the super athlete in the lab. Like, remember the Rocky one, when Rocky went against Dolph Lundgren,
Right.
It was like that, where you got them hooked up to machines and you're injecting them with the latest and the greatest, and you're monitoring and you're doing all these kinds of super modern technological protocols, and you're creating the beast. That I would like to see, because
I think
then
Hitler was trying to do that.
he certainly tried, and then
Yeah, we saw where that went, right?
it didn't do too well, but he didn't have the genetic pool he thought he did.
Right.
So, the idea behind that is, kind of interesting. And at the same time, if CrossFit really wants to save itself from the stigma that it's currently got, all you got to do is take the money out. Make CrossFit something you do on Saturday afternoon at the park for no money and no fame and no recognition, and just see who can do it better than the next guy. Then you're going to have a whole different dynamic. But you've got a lot at stake now, a lot at stake. And because you do, on a lot of different levels, not only HQ and the athlete, but also the sponsors, because there's so much at stake, the athlete has got no choice. They just don't. And that's the bottom line.
Totally understand. And all right, well, I think that really kind of, I guess that definitely covers all the questions that I had. I'm just looking over really quick. And is there anything else that you would like to touch on? Something that I missed besides the thing that you brought up about the whole community aspect of it and whatnot?
Yeah, just one thing that people don't ever consider, and that is the future is coming. And what I mean by that is there are technologies on the horizon, some of which are already being employed and tested in other countries, that are going to make steroids and PEDs as we know them obsolete. And we're not very far away from that. And we're talking genetic level performance enhancement, and we're talking things that don't even make sense to a lot of people today, but they're coming. And once they do, there's going to be a long period of time when these things are completely undetectable, completely unnoticeable physiologically, but you're going to see performance increase at a rate that's going to make even the most hardened scientists scratch their head in disbelief. And that's coming. So CrossFit better brace itself if they think that they're going to maintain their supposed squeaky clean image, because there's technologies on the horizon that are going to blow away whatever is commonplace today. And you're going to see human beings capable of performance that are unimaginable today. And then what's going to happen?
Gosh.
So then how are they going to explain it?
I have no idea. Hopefully that's something that we could follow up with you on, because right now athletes are doing things that are already blowing my mind. So if these type of technologies are on the horizon, I can't imagine what's going to happen in the future. So I would love to do a follow-up, probably in 6 months or 8 months or something like that, and have another talk about what we got comments on about this episode, what people kind of either bantered about or said good things about, and maybe try to answer some of their questions, and again continue to educate, because that's the only thing that I believe that we can do. Is you can educate, and then you allow people to make educated decisions with or without or I guess not with or without, but once the people make the educated decision, or once they are informed, they can make that decision and understand the outcomes or the detriments of the decisions that they make.
Sure. Yeah, knowledge is power. Always has been, always will be.
Right. All right. Awesome. Well, John, I can't thank you enough. I'm sorry that I that our connection got a little screwed up being so far away. I promise I will be closer next time, and we'll make it happen. It'll be even better next time. Hopefully, everything continues to progress. Your knowledge has been awesome. Thank you again for sharing it to me. You're a big mentor, I guess, of mine, and you probably have no idea, but I've read just about every one of your articles just because I appreciate the frankness, and I appreciate not only the frankness, because people talk frank, and sometimes they talk frank, but they talk arrogant, and I don't think that you do that. I think that you have an educational background behind that, which demands respect, and should not be overlooked. And I think that anybody that hasn't read any of your stuff or hasn't looked into the things that you do should. So I'll make sure that your contact information, not this contact information, but your articles and stuff are out there, especially the ones that are relative to the functional fitness community, so people can get out there and they can learn, because they do need to understand and they do need to be educated with the things that we talked about today. So again, thank you so much, and I really do appreciate everything.
It's been my pleasure. Call on me anytime. I'm always happy to help.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey guys, welcome back, and I really hope that you enjoyed tonight's episode. I really hope that it was also as educational for yourself as it was for me. And I really want to thank Johnny Romano for coming on and sharing both his knowledge and his time with us. One last thing to conclude with and to keep in your mind, please remember that everything that you saw and listened to in tonight's episode was solely the opinions of the expert that was brought on, and the visual imaging was put on just for your entertainment and is not an accusation towards any one person or group of persons. Please keep that in mind, and thank you very much for coming on and listening to tonight's episode. Guys, until tomorrow, we're optimizing function to optimize performance.